So UFC Noche is set to take place in September. This originally was meant to be in Guadalajara, Mexico. It was meant to be UFC 320. However, the UFC have moved locations now to San Antonio, Texas. It will no longer be UFC 320. Instead, UFC Noche will be a fight night card. But this will be one of the biggest fight night cards this year, hands down. UFC Noche will be a big card. And as the best matchmaker on YouTube, I am here today to construct the best UFC Fight Night Noche main card. So there are 5 fights on this main card. I've tried to keep it realistic, so there's not like really unrealistic matchups on the card. They are all realistic, and that can happen, and that will make sense for this card. I've also tried to fit the theme that the UFC like to follow for these like Mexican themed cards, which is just cram a lot of Mexican fighters onto the card. So there is a Mexican fighter in every single fight on the main card. Let's not waste any more time. Opening up the main card, we have got Raul Rosas Jr. Raul Rosas Jr., somewhat of a big name. His stock kind of did take a hit when he lost. Obviously, coming off the Contender Series, the UFC were trying to go all out for this guy. They are still trying to promote him heavy. He is still young in his MMA career, just in life in general. He is 20 years of age. The UFC are trying to get the Mexican fan base to get behind this guy. They always try to include him on their Mexican fight nights or pay-per-views. He was on UFC Noche, most recently on UFC Fight Night Mexico. Raul Rosas Jr., I think he should be opening up the main card of this UFC Noche card. And who I have him fighting is Adrian Yanez. Now, Adrian Yanez has somewhat of name value. I'm not trying to say this guy, you walk down the street and go, yo bro, you ever heard of Adrian Yanez? And they're going to go, yeah man, Adrian Yanez is my favorite UFC fighter. No one's going to say that, but he does have a bit of name value. Like, he's known. Adrian Yanez is known. Adrian Yanez obviously had a lot of hype. Whenever he was going into that Rob Font fight, people were saying, yo, man, Adrian Yanez, he is the mini Jorge Masvidal, bruh. He's got heat in his hands, man. And then he got smoked by Rob Font, and now he's a win one, lose one fighter in the UFC. But Adrian Yanez versus Raul Rosas Jr., I think it's a fun fight. Both guys are known. Raul Rosas Jr., I think he would beat Adrian Yanez. I think he would be able to out-grapple Adrian Yanez in there, although Raul Rosas Jr. does tend to slow down as the fight goes on. And on the feet, Adrian Yanez will have a big advantage over Raul Rosas Jr. in my opinion. So, ideally, either Raul Rosas Jr. is able just to smother Adrian Yanez with his grappling, and Raul Rosas Jr. is a bit of a finisher when the fight hits the mat, whether that be with his submissions or his ground and pound, and he is pretty big for the bantamweight division, so I definitely think he would be able to out-grapple Adrian Yanez, and I think he would beat him with his grappling. However, if history repeats itself and Raul Rosas Jr. was to slow down and not be able to get Adrian Yanez to the mat, I think on the feet, Adrian Yanez, he is a better striker than Raul Rosas Jr. I think he would be able to piece up Raul Rosas Jr. on the feet and probably get a nice stoppage over him, although Raul Rosas Jr., I mean, look at his chin. Goddamn! So he can probably take a couple of smacks. A smack off me feels like a double barrel shotgun. Those who know McGregor Habib press conference, and I spot everywhere. But yeah, either Raul Rosas Jr. gets a big win over a known guy by just out-grappling him, or Adrian Yanez just absolutely lights Raul Rosas Jr. up on the feet. Huge talking point to open up the card. Although Adrian Yanez does have good takedown defense at 81%. However, I think Raul Rosas Jr. will probably be one of the better grapplers Adrian Yanez has faced throughout his career. I'm trying to think. Yeah. And Adrian Yanez hasn't fought since December. I just think it's a nice opener. You know, this is like the bread and butter of the table. You know, you're waiting for maybe your appetizers and shit like that, but they bring you out bread and butter. That's what this is. Everybody's going to like it. No one's going to complain about this fight. Moving on, Manuel Torres, El Loco, he needs to be on the card. Coming off a massive win at UFC Mexico City where he smoked Drew Dober, stopped him in the first round, absolutely hit him with that. and absolutely smoked Drew Dober. Not many people are doing that. I think him versus Nasrat Haqparast. Haqparast is on a bit of a win streak now. I think he's on like a 4-fight win streak. He's got good wins. I know his last 2 fights were split decisions against Ribovic and Jared Gordon, but those guys are known guys in the UFC. Like, it's not as if he's going split decision, tooth and nail with fucking, I don't know, a bin man, you know what I mean? That's like just trains twice a week and is taking a fight on the weekends. You know, he's in there with high level competition. A good southpaw boxer. Manuel Torres has got that heat in his hands. I think stylistically, this is a really, really fun fight. I wanted to get Manuel Torres a fight in the rankings. However, when I just look at the rankings and the lower half of the top 15, I just can't seem to get him a fight. Benoit Saint-Denis is going to be on the France card. They're not going to waste him on this card, let's be honest. That's not going to happen. And when you look just outside the rankings, there are other people that are more deserving of a ranked opponent than Manuel Torres. Haqparast is arguably one of them, if we're being honest. Yes, he stopped Drew Dober, but before that he did lose to Bahamontes. And then before that he did beat Chris Duncan by submission. So he's a very fun fighter. He's either stopping you in the first round or he is being stopped himself in the first round. Look, these guys arguably both deserve their ranked opponent next, but this is a good way to just eliminate one of them and have the other one move on to a guy in the top 15. I just think it's a really fun fight, to be honest, as well. Again, not the most well-known fighters. That's why I think having Raul Rosas Jr. to open up the main card would make sense, because a lot of people will want to tune in to see him fight because of his name value. So they'll see that fight, see how that plays out, and then whenever they come across this fight right here, which will be an absolute guaranteed banger, we are setting up for victory on this card. Moving on to the feature fight of the card. Look, it pains me to have a women's fight on the main card. But Alexia Grasso has to be on it. The UFC love her. A lot of simps that watch the UFC love her. Number 3 in the world in the women's flyweight division. The UFC have favoritized her a lot. I mean, they robbed Valentina Shevchenko in their rematch by making that a draw. Don't know how that happened. Is on a 2-fight losing streak now. Lost to Natalia Silva at UFC 315. But I think with this card being in September and her last fight taking place in May, gives her enough time. She didn't take a lot of damage in that fight. I need to sneeze so bad. Cabbages. But yeah, Alexia Grasso, number 3 in the world. Feature fight makes sense for her. She's a big name, has a big following. Let's put her against Erin Blanchfield. Look, Erin Blanchfield was meant to fight... what do you call her? Macy Barber. Obviously, Macy Barber couldn't make it to the cage that night. Erin Blanchfield, she does have wins over the likes of Molly McCann. Who is beating Molly McCann, please tell me. And Raul Rosas Jr. She is number 4 in the world, number 3 versus number 4. I think with how she was fucked over in the Macy Barber whole scenario, just give her this fight. Why not? I mean, does anybody really give a shit about this fight? I think they will. You know, I think you have to have the big Mexican stars on this card, and Alexia Grasso is that. I think the feature fight, her, Erin Blanchfield, I think it's nice. Now we're going to get on to the meat and potatoes of the card, yeah? We're going to be getting on to the stuff that people are going to be saying. You know, the next 2 fights are what people are here for, yeah? Let's not kid each other. Let's not bullshit, yeah? The next 2 fights are what people are here for. Let's start off. Probably the biggest Mexican fighter the UFC have in terms of fan base. Brandon Moreno needs to be on this card. When you think of Mexican UFC fighters, this guy pops up. The assassin, baby. Let's get him on the card. Not main event though. And when I was looking through the flyweight division, obviously you've got Royval versus Joshua Van now. Manel Kape's injured. Perez is fighting Steve Ercik. What else? Who else? Amir Albazi's taking on... what do you call him? Tatsuro Taira. He's taking on him. So, we've had to go down the rankings a lot, but hear me out. He is better than his number 15th ranked. Kai Asakura, big name, obviously got smoked by Pantoja. No shame in that though, Pantoja's arguably the GOAT of that division. Yes, I said that, arguably. I'm not saying he is, I'm saying there is an argument to be had. He soon will be the GOAT, so shut up. Stop getting at me, please. But I think Moreno versus Kai Asakura, fun fight. Fun fight. Kai Asakura's got a massive following. He will bring a lot of eyes to this fight. Brandon Moreno also a lot of following. Brandon Moreno, look, I know Kai Asakura is ranked number 15 and Moreno's ranked number 2, but with how they've booked the flyweight division, this is probably outside of a title fight, this is the biggest fight they can make in that division. Both guys have mega followings. I think stylistically it's also a very fun fight. I wouldn't be against them making this a 5-round co-main event, to be honest. Like, I'm not saying it needs to be, but I wouldn't be against it. Because UFC Noche is going to be a big deal. We need to all be on board of that. And I would like to see it. I think it would be a really fun fight. Brandon Moreno's near the end of his career. He's taken a lot of damage. Kai Asakura, obviously 0-1 in the UFC. Done a lot of work in Rising. Big star. Big hitter as well. I just think it's a nice co-main event. Moreno needs to be on the card. I think this is the best possible opponent for him. Kai Asakura, Brandon Moreno, co-main event, makes sense. And finally, the main event, we have got Diego Lopez. Big brr. Diego Lopez, look, we know what it is. I'm not going to try and reinvent the wheel. It's him versus Yair Rodriguez. I know he said Yair Rodriguez has turned the fight down, and Yair Rodriguez is like, hey, go on, I want to fight him in the stream, man. I don't know what I get from fighting him in the promotion, outside of a boatload of money. But yeah, we know why the riots are going on in LA. It's because Yair has ducked Diego Lopez. It's sad to see that the UFC is spilling over into the streets of LA with people rioting now. It's not nice. I understand why they're doing it. I get it. We need to see this fight. But yeah, in terms of, has there ever been a fight more perfect for a date before in the UFC? UFC Noche needs this fight in the main event. It is perfect. It's actually one of the biggest fights the UFC can make right now. UFC Noche headlined by Diego Lopez, Yair Rodriguez, the bad blood. Let's promote the fuck out of this as well. Have a press conference. Let's have face-to-face sit-downs. Let's really make this big. You want to increase the Mexican fan base? Then let's start promoting it and making fights that are worthwhile. Diego Lopez versus Yair Rodriguez, main event in UFC Noche. That there is cinema. Diego Lopez will knock him out inside 2 rounds. Good. And then we can send Yair to Misfits because he's just so fucking irritating. But yeah, that's how I would book UFC Noche. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to try and be humble here, but I have fucking cooked. I don't think you're going to make a better 5-fight main card than that. Let me know in the comments below. And as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. I really appreciate the support. And I will see you all again in the next one. Big brr.